issue today is more about what about the older worker and job retention, and for a while that will be, I think, the big issue. The whole notion of diversity of thought and experience, the ultimate advantage to building a diverse workforce is achieving true diversity of thought and ideas. Diversity of thought comes naturally from a corporate culture that respects and celebrates the differences among employees and customers alike. And by the way, good companies, good employers, think that their employees should look like their customers, should look like their vendors. Just follow that line all the way through. Their employees should look like their customers, should look like their vendors, which should reflect representatively the population in the workforce and in the community. What's your community made of work age? I've already referenced technology, but I'll just say that a week's worth of New York Times contains more information than a person was likely to come across in a lifetime in the 18th century. The amount of technical information is doubling every 2 years. That means for a student starting a 4-year college degree, half of what they learn in their first year of the study will be outdated by their 3rd year. It is predicted to double every 72 hours next year, the amount of knowledge that is available to them. 57% of all teens use the internet, and they themselves are content generators, self-publishers using cameras, radios, digital tape recorders. The amount of content is incredible, and the question is it accessible to people with disabilities? The answer is no, not yet. Not really and not fully. Even though YouTube now has captioning, that's a part of all the things that are going on. It's not on every video, and it's very hard to do that. And should it be done in the core technologies? Yes. Look at IBM and Microsoft and others are placing those technologies on the computer itself. We talked about vendoring. And under corporate social responsibility programs, of which supplier diversity programs are but one important component, Americans with disabilities should be fully participating, but we need to be able to be sure that they're having a full opportunity to participate in it. I'm really proud of the USBLN's supplier diversity program. I could tell you about the Walgreens model, and I'm sure you've heard about it, and I'm sure you'd like to have Walgreens move into the state and open up a distribution center. Now, here's an interesting situation. Walgreens has, in their new distribution centers, has the ability to build all the technologies into their jobs. So everything's highly automated, and they don't use necessarily words. They use symbols and images for everybody, not just for the employees with disabilities that they hire. Everybody says, I'm working at the kangaroo station today, or I'm working at the bear station today, or the panther station today. And all the information comes to them in various methods of color, code, sound, so that it's sort of universally provided. 40% of the workforce of Anderson, South Carolina Distribution Center and in Windsor, Connecticut are people with disabilities. Is that a ghetto? Is that a GIMP ghetto? Can I be jive here? Is that a GIMP ghetto if we have 40%? Gosh, that's above the proportionate share of people with disabilities in our communities. That's double the representation. Shame on Walgreens. I'm like, are you kidding me? When we start mirroring good wages paid to people with disabilities across the board, then we can say to those overzealous disability employing employers, please stop hiring so many people with disabilities. Until then, don't stop any employer from hiring people with disabilities. My goodness sakes. I say that in all the respect to John Alexander and 14C, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I really like you, John. I really do. And I know that you and I are going to be pals, even though if we may disagree, we may totally agree on all things like that. But I don't think we should be cutting off any options for anybody whatsoever, including in the 14C program, as long as it's properly enforced and there are incentives. Okay, 2 minutes. I got 2 minutes to wrap this big baby up. Disability market. Do we buy goods and services? You better believe it. The employers out there are looking for us as customers. Well, you know what? When I go up to a place, I want to know that they're hiring people with disabilities first. You just don't get my money unless I believe you're doing a good job of hiring. And I like to see a little more economic power on the part of people with disabilities and colleagues for companies that are not doing appropriately in the employment area. And we have many of those companies who say they're doing well but aren't doing well. And how do we know that? We also look at products and services. They're certainly developing products and services for the aging and disability community. Those products and services, like those easy, how do I get a mason jar open? my wife puts something in a mason jar and says, there's something in there for you, I'm like looking at it like, I'll never get inside that jar, ever. I can't use my clamps, I can't use my mouth, I just can't get it open. She would never do that, but that's just an example. Now we have products that are being made that allow us to be able to do that. I hope that those companies that are delivering that are employing a good number of people with disabilities. 73% of us, people with disabilities, are heads of our households. 46% of us are married. 58% of us own our own homes. 77% of us have no children at home. And 48% of us are principal shoppers. Talk to me as a customer, and that's what I'm really looking for. There are 76 million Americans who are over the age of 50 and control 80% of the $25 trillion in financial assets that Americans hold. All right? Over 50, the people over 50 control 80% of the net assets of Americans. I'm suggesting that that would be about 30 to 40% of people with disabilities control the net assets of America. We have yet to figure out the power, our economic power, in those terms. You don't tell me that SunTrust banks and other banks in the southern part of the country haven't figured this out already. They know that most of the customers coming in Florida have disabilities because 1 in 4 over 50, 1 in 2 over 65 are people with disabilities. They are fully accommodating them in every way possible, including helping them get online and do their banking. They want their business so badly. There are many reasons, many wonderful reasons why we should be talking to business. Business is going to be a big help to all of us. They're not the panacea. They're not the end of the world. They're not going to save us from ourselves or from government. It's going to take a long time to transition, I think, to it. But let's be proud of the fact that we are employers too, and that we have good jobs for people with disabilities, and that many people with disabilities should be employed in CRPs along with the businesses as well. I'll close by saying I've heard former Assistant Secretary of ODEP, Neil Romano, say, why do we have to make a business case for hiring people with disabilities? How resentful is that? Do we make a business case for hiring women? Let's see, we're thinking maybe this women thing, it might be a good thing, all right? Let's see, but you gotta show me first why we ought to have some women in here, and then maybe us men will hire some women. We don't say that, do we? Do we say, let's have a business case? Well, I hope we don't. Okay, maybe we do. All right. I hear you, women. I hear you. Do we say that for African Americans? Let's make a business case. If you can give me the business case, we'll hire some African Americans. How ridiculous. And now we're saying, do we have to make a business case? Do we have to play that game? So understand that there's a strong counter argument being raised right now by people with disabilities and others that say, why do we have to make a business case? This is about us being legitimate, righteous members of society that should be fairly considered to be able to perform the jobs and meet the productivity standards of all. So given all that back and forth, the business case hopefully is made. We are an appropriate member of our communities. We have money to spend, and we want to earn money in good jobs with employers. So I'll end there and say thank you. It's a high honor, and I'll be part of a panel here that we can continue this dialogue. Thank you very much for having me.